Привет, друзья! Welcome to Be Fluent in Russian show. This is the first episode, and this is the start of a new show on Be Fluent in Russian channel. The goal for this show is for it to be something like a companion in your Russian language journey. This is not for beginners, not for intermediate, not for advanced. This is not a specific group kind of a show, but for everybody. And I hope that these weekly episodes will help you, guide you maybe sometimes through your Russian journey. It will not be lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, but more so extra learning to accompany your Russian learning. So this won't be a curriculum. This would be like a side thing to help you, maybe give you a bit of extra motivation, give you a community, because people in the comments are going to be there responding to the things that I'm saying, to help you on your journey to be fluent in Russian. It's not an easy one, so here's something that will help you, maybe a bit of motivation to you throughout your Russian journey. And today, since it's the first episode, please share your feedback в комментариях, in the comments, whatever it is, things that you think can be improved upon, removed, added, whatever it is. Let me hear your thoughts. And in each episode, I'll be reading some of the comments or maybe even responding to your questions. If you have some questions about the Russian language, also put them in the comments. I'll choose one or two that are most interesting and will answer those questions in the next episode. For example, we have one for today. Why is G pronounced as V? In the Russian language, the rules of pronunciation can be different. For this particular one, G is pronounced as V at the end of adjectives. Like, for example, красивый, beautiful, changes to красивого, which is a genitive case. So this O, G, O is not pronounced as красивого, but it's pronounced as красивого. So it only is changed from G to V in pronunciation at the end of adjectives. You see OGO, pronounce it as ovo, or EGO, pronounce it as Eva. Two exceptions when it's not at the end of the adjective is его for him. I don't say его, I say его. And another one that you might see a whole lot of is сегодня. You might say, well, сегодня means today. And this is not at the end, it's in the middle. Why is it V? Well, back in the day, сегодня, today, used to be two separate words. Сегодня, of this day. And later in the history, it joined back together, but the pronunciation stayed. So whenever you see general rule, OGO, EGO, pronounce it as OVA and EVA. Another trick, another pronunciation trick. This is how you can train your V sounds. In English language, the V sounds is not as prevalent, so it's okay if your V are weak. So this is how you train it, how you practice it. In the Russian language, consonants are important. They create the structure of our speech. So this is how you practice the V sounds. When you say V or F sounds, both, make sure that your top teeth are touching your bottom lip. V, V, or F, F. Here's an exercise for you guys to do. Just say this in order. V, V, Va, Vo, Vu, V. V, V, Va, Vo, Vu, V. And make sure that your teeth touch your bottom lip. This exercise will help you practice the sounds and make it stronger. So that's why, to answer this question, G is pronounced as V and how to pronounce V correctly. If you have your questions, also put them in the comments. Today, since this is the start of our show, I want to talk about how to be truly fluent in Russian. What should you do? What does fluency look like? Etc. We'll talk about all of those things, but at the end of this video, it's important to know what to expect of yourself and what to ask of yourself if your goal is to be fluent in Russian. But before we move there, guys, I have two segments, culture and vocabulary. So we're going to finish off with how to be fluent, but let's now talk about the culture a little bit. The culture is very important for your language learning because culture and language go hand in hand. Language influences the culture, and culture is reflected in the language. The cultural moment that has happened last week was the Victory Day. In Russia, in all post-USSR countries, the Victory Day is very important. Victory Day, May 9th, is celebrated ever since 1945 after the victory over the Nazi Germany. And this is a very big day for a lot of Russians. And even still, I'm 27 years old. Am I? Yes, I am. I'll be 28 years soon. Okay. I'm 27 years old, and even for me, I have not participated in the war. My grandparents did not participate in the war even. I don't have any living experience with any veteran. But even on me, it has a big effect. And of course, the older the person you're talking to, the more of the effect that they will have after the war. For example, my grandparents, their parents fought in the war. And my grandparents lived post-war time. So a lot of things that have happened then is still within them. So the older the person you're talking to when you learn Russian, the more connection they will have with that time. So let's talk about that time and why and how it's still influencing us today. So May 9th, 1945 is the first Victory Day celebration. Last week, we had an 80th anniversary of that day. Why do we care about this day so much? Well, for really all the bad reasons. The Second World War took lives of 11 million plus of the Soviet people. A lot of people have died during that 4-year time span. In fact, 6 years, but in Russia or USSR was really involved for 4 years, since from 1941 to 1945. And ever since that war was over, post-war time was also very, very bad, very, very tough. Hunger, poverty, destruction, just a lot of men went to war and died in the war. So a lot of ladies were left kind of without any breadwinners, any people, any working power to help them maybe raise children, make money, take care of the household. So a lot of the post-war time, I would say about 25 years, was pretty tough on the country, on the USSR. And all of that is celebrated on May 9th, meaning the survival, getting over that difficult time. So people like me, I was born, 50 years after the war was already won. So I don't have to worry about those times. I don't have to live through those times. And we celebrate the people who survived, the people who fought in the war, and the great pleasure of life, or the great blessing of life that they brought us. But how do we celebrate this day, May 9th? It's not really a celebration, right? Because it's a terrible thing that has happened. But still, it's typically a city celebration. We don't really have any traditions in our homes. We don't really do anything. But we go out in the streets, typically in the center of the city. For example, I live in Novosibirsk. We go out in the city center for fireworks at night, for the parade of the military. Each big city has a parade in one of the main squares. Moscow, Novosibirsk, other towns as well. You can see the photos right now on the screen. That's the parade. We show our power, I guess our military power and our appreciation for the military. Then people stay and they just mingle in the city center. Typically, the city provides different activities for people. Concerts, maybe some other things like food trucks and things like that. So a lot of activities happening in the main areas of major cities. And that's how we kind of celebrate it. I don't like that celebration personally as much. I don't like to be around a ton of people. I get kind of, annoyed by the crowds. I'm not really that kind of a person. But a lot of people did come out this year because it was the 80th anniversary. And so what does all of that mean to you as a Russian learner, Russian language learner? It gives you a bit of context into the mind of the people, why we care about it so much. If we care about it so much, then you should too. it will influence your conversations. And like I said in the beginning, the older the person you're talking to, the more they will have kind of the memory of that or the connection to that. People of my age and younger, not as much. 50 plus, yeah. And so that can influence the way you talk about that time, the way you think about the 60s and 50s of the USSR. And the best way, in my opinion, the best way that I could also learn the spirit of that time is through movies. Those are very heavy and tough movies to watch. Not just the movies about the battlefield, but about the lives of the people. I have 3 movies here for you. На семи ветрах, on the 7 winds. It's a story about a lady whose husband, I believe, went to fight in the war. And she is bravely going to see him, to find him, to talk to him. And she never does. She's looking for him. There's still a rumor about him being out there. And the movie is showing that this place that she went to find him, she stays there for the whole duration of the war, and she helps different people. At first, it was just the people who were kind of in the back doing the news, the war news. She was helping them. And then it was a medical ward there. She was helping them. And it goes to show her life throughout those 4 years and the difficulty of that time. That's movie number 1. Number 2, Летят журавли. The cranes are flying. It again shows a story about a couple who was about to get married, but the guy, is going to the war to defend his country. And now it's showing him in a way, but also is showing the lady as well, how she is dealing with the whole thing, how she finds another person to fall in love with just because she was so stressed, and in this time it was just very, very bad for everybody. And so that again shows the life of her and the future husband life as well. And the last one, I think the heaviest one, «А зори здесь тихие». The dawns here are quiet. Now, this is a bit more of that military movie. It's a movie about a group of ladies who also fought in the war, but not at the front line, but a bit more in the back. But it shows one of the missions that they were on to send information about incoming Germany army, and how they did that mission, or how they completed that mission, and what kind of sacrifices they had to take. All of these 3 movies right here on the screen are extremely heavy. They're emotional, but they give you an insight into the spirit of the people of that time. And I think that it was a great door for me to understand a bit of the emotional connection. Not the facts, 1941, this started, this battle started, he did this, they did that. None of those factual things, but emotional things. And I think that the language carries more of the emotional part versus the factual part. And for you guys sitting in the comfort of your own home, not being in Russia necessarily, you can watch that and get that emotion. And whenever you talk to a Russian person, you can relate to them much, much easier. That's my advice to you. But these are the movies for a strong mind, okay? So make sure that you take the time, that you're not in a rush, that you sit down and watch it with full attention. That's it for the cultural part of this Be Fluent in Russian show, episode number 1. Let's move on to the vocabulary. Each episode, I'll bring you some vocabulary that is interesting, that is different, that we have something to learn from. For example, today we have 10 verbs that are untranslatable from Russian to English. There is no one-way translation. We have to explain them somehow. And I will do that for you. So, first verb, любоваться. Любоваться means to admire. Not to admire, I admire this artist, I admire this person. No, it's when you visually admire something. You look out in the window and you see the great landscape. Я любуюсь природой. I'm admiring the nature. Right now, I'm visually admiring. You can also, я любуюсь картиной. I'm admiring the picture. Right now, I'm looking at a picture at a museum and I'm admiring it. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm looking at the picture and I'm taking it in. Of course, the stem here, любоваться, люб, comes from любовь, love. So it's a very similar thing to that. First verb, любоваться. Заниматься, to engage oneself in an activity regularly, or to occupy oneself with something, often implying study or work. So заниматься. This verb заниматься means to engage in, to do something. But заниматься really has like maybe 10 different meanings. Main ones are я занимаюсь музыкой. I do music. So when you have a certain job that you do, you can say this. Я занимаюсь plus your field of work. It can be финансами, finances, английским, English, anything, any big subject that you do for your work, you can use this structure. What about studying? You can just say я занимаюсь. If you are in your room studying, reading something, taking notes, that process is already я занимаюсь. I'm studying, I'm engaged in. Right? So again, the translation doesn't really make sense, but it means I'm studying right now. That's the second usage of it. Then we have phrases. Заниматься спортом, to do sports, to work out. 18 plus version, заниматься сексом, to have sex. That's also a phrase that we say sometimes, so you guys need to know it as well. So as you can see, there's many different usages of this заниматься. And the more Russian that you learn, the more you will have kind of a baggage of different meanings of this заниматься. Very important one, as you can tell. Then we have просить. Просить is to ask. The reason why it's not translatable is because просить is not really to ask a question, is to ask for a favor, is to ask for somebody else to do something, not to ask them for information. For example, просить принести соль, to ask to bring salt. Просить приехать, to come to ask to come, to arrive, to visit, right? Приехать means to come and pick me up or something, or to come deliver something, whatever it is. So просить is a verb to ask for a favor. I can say, пожалуйста, я прошу тебя. Please, I'm asking you. I'm asking you not for information, but for a favor. Please do this for me. So просить is the third word. Водить. Водить as a verb is very diverse. It's a verb of motion. Водить can be to drive a car. Я вожу машину. So вожу is a conjugated version of водить. Я вожу машину. I drive a car. I have a license. I drive a car. I don't take public transportation. I drive a car. Я вожу машину. But also водить can be to bring a kid to a kindergarten, for example. Я веду ребенка в садик. I am taking a kid to the kindergarten. Okay? So водить is to drive, to bring somebody, and it has many, many different meanings. Overall, it means to bring someone by walking to some place. But then we have a secondary meaning of to drive a car. That's the way to really think about this word. Next one, успевать. Успевать means to manage to get somewhere on time. For example, you look at the clock. Мы не успеваем на поезд. We will not manage to get in time for the train. Успевать really sums that whole manage to get there in time in one verb. To be somewhere on time, to manage to get somewhere on time. So in English, think about it, right? To be on time. It's more of yourself. I am on time. It's more a description of yourself. Well, in Russian, it's a verb, it's an action. To get there on time. Okay, to manage to be there on time. Успевать. Like I said, мы не успеваем, we're not going to be there on time. Не переживай, мы успеваем, don't worry, we'll be there on time. Those are the common structures of this verb. Next verb is a very, very interesting one. Разлюбить. Разлюбить, любить means to love. What does раз have as a prefix? Well, разлюбить means to start to dislike something. You used to love something or someone, but then you fell out of love with them or with the thing. Я разлюбил рок-музыку. I fell out of love with the rock music. I used to love it, I no longer do. Почему ты меня разлюбила? Why did you fell out of love with me? Why don't you love me anymore? Those are the common things that you can say to express your used to be love for someone or something. Very, very interesting and useful verb. Разбираться. Разбираться is the next verb. Разбираться means to really be knowledgeable in something. Я хорошо разбираюсь в компьютерах. I know computers well. But разбираться is not really to know about something. It's to know everything in that field. Is if we're talking about this sentence right here, to talk about the computers, you know everything, hardware, software, how to go kind of in the settings of the computer and set the small details about it. So you know this topic. Разбираться really means to be super knowledgeable about a certain topic. So the structure is, when you know something good, я разбираюсь в. I know something of, or I am knowledgeable in something. So use this structure for yourself too. Доедать. Доедать is a very interesting verb. It is translatable, but with two verbs. To finish eating. Let's say you had a plate and you only ate half. You only ate, let's say you had some rice with chicken. You only ate the chicken because it was better. And then your mom can tell you, это нужно доесть. You need to finish eating that. So доедать as a verb means you started eating something and now you need to finish it. So доедать, до as a prefix means to finish doing something. And of course, едать means to eat as the stem. Yeah. Next, мерзнуть. Мерзнуть is a very common verb for a Russian, as you can imagine. I live in Siberia, so it's a very, very common. To feel cold or uncomfortable due to low temperature. I can say, я часто мерзну. I often feel cold, but мерзнуть is to feel coldness somewhere in your feet, in your nose, in your ears, something. So мерзнуть is to feel that coldness. I can also say, у меня уши мерзнут. My ears are getting cold. My ears are feeling cold, like that. So мерзнуть as a stem, as a verb, means to feel that cold, to get cold, all of those things here. And the last verb, my favorite, высыпаться. Высыпаться means to get enough sleep. Высыпаться. Now, it has a prefix вы, and then the stem сыпать, but altogether, we really think of this verb as all together. We don't really separate вы from the stem. We don't really separate the ся as a suffix of the reflexive verb. We don't really take it apart into parts of the verb, but we really think of it as one whole thing. Высыпаться. Here's how you can use it. Я не высыпаюсь. I don't get enough sleep. Вчера ночью я не выспался. Last night I didn't get enough sleep. So things like that. That's it. That's really all the verbs that we had for today, for this episode. As you can see, 10 crucial, interesting verbs that you guys can use. Here they are on the screen. Take a screenshot and maybe practice them making a sentence. Also, you can do that in the comments as well. And then finally, let's talk about the topic of today's episode. What it takes to be fluent in Russian. I think it comes, two major things need to happen for you to be fluent in Russian. First is the whole understanding of what fluency really is. Here's how I would define it. And it's not knowing all the words in the Russian dictionary. Far from that. I think fluency is talking about 95% of topics in a language that are not niche, not nuanced, something very, very basic, something very everyday. Nobody is asking you to describe a movie in a detail that only a critic can accomplish. None of those things, right? So it's most everyday conversations. Going to the store, maybe ordering food on the phone, things like that. Things that natives do every day over and over and over again. Going to the railroad station and finding a ticket, buying it, talking to the lady. Even if, let's say, you have a screen and you can barely hear them also being able to communicate with obstacles and things like that. So that's fluency in my opinion. Being able to talk about 95% of different topics in Russian and doing it successfully in a concise manner, not using like 10 words when you can use one, for the other person to understand you and for you to understand them. It's a very, very long explanation, but what does it really take? Let's think about it. First of all, of course, it takes vocabulary. You have to have a vast vocabulary in Russian. In my opinion, so A1, A2, B1, B2 is the very, very minimum of that. Some people may disagree with me and say, well, fluency really means also C1 and C2 as levels. I disagree, because it will only unlock the other 5% of the conversations that we left out. A1 to B2 covers that 95+% of the conversations. So that's a realistic goal when it comes to vocabulary. Now, grammar. Is grammar important? Of course. Grammar is important once you already have that foundation of vocabulary. It's very important to put words properly with the proper ending, proper prefix, things like that, so that the other person can understand you. Remember, that was a part of our point of fluency. You don't want to say something wrong and the person you're talking to has to figure out what you meant. They will figure it out most likely, but you don't want to put that stress on them. You have to put it on yourself to learn that topic well. So that's when it comes to grammar. Grammar is very important in the Russian language, especially when it comes to reading stuff. Grammar and the punctuation is very important. Spoken language, not as much. And then it's the pronunciation. Pronunciation has to be on point. I'm not talking about having an accent. That's natural. You will probably never get rid of your accent fully. But proper pronunciation is crucial. Whenever there's a ah, you say it as ah, not as o. Whenever there is, like we had in the beginning, красиво va, you don't say красиво ga. For example, today we had an incident in a restaurant. My wife is also learning Russian, and she asked for ketchup. So she said, можно кетчуп. But in Russian, it's можно кетчуп. So that a versus u led to a waiter not understanding her. That's when I had to fill in and say ketchup with the u at the end. So that bit of a misunderstanding happened because of that, because of lack of proper pronunciation. Then we have speaking, being able to have the words in your vocabulary, but then have them instantly available when you speak. And finally, listening. When a person is speaking to you, you have to be able to decipher what they said, even if they speak fast, even if it's a loud environment, even if they speak on the phone with a bad connection. All of those things have to come together for your fluency. Now that we have established that, think about where you are right now in that kind of progress bar. If we take that as 100%, where are you? 10%, 5%, 50% maybe. Which part of your Russian is lacking? Is it the vocabulary? Is it the grammar, speaking, pronunciation? Which part is that? I think part of the problem, part of the solution to the problem of fluency is knowing where you are to begin with. So being realistic about your Russian is very important. That's step number one, realizing where you are on this, let's say, 1,000-step journey. Which step have you taken? Are you far from the goal or are you close to it? Which part of your Russian is lacking? And what should you do to make it better? Now, on to the second step is, in fact, taking those steps to fluency. In my opinion, it takes, from experience, it takes about 1,500 hours to reach fluency from zero, from nothing. The first 100 hours are the most difficult because you're getting acquainted with the Russian language. The alphabet, the pronunciation, everything is new to you. You might have heard a Russian person on TV speaking English with a Russian accent, talking like this and being very, very rude and all this stuff. That can be your first introduction to the Russian language. But now you're getting into the alphabet. words, pronunciation, logic of the Russian language. First 100 hours are the most difficult, but it also is very difficult because you don't know which steps to take. You don't know what to learn, what not to learn. Our channel, Be Fluent in Russian channel, will help you somehow, some way, but I can only really vouch for our website, Be Fluent. We have an app, we have a website with the first link in the description that does have a step-by-step process. This is not just from me pushing our website. This is something that I actually believe in because we did it. I was a big part of that curriculum. We built that curriculum from start to finish, and it's something that I really believe in. What can I say? If you come to me and say, hey, I want to learn Russian, that's honestly the number one thing that I would recommend. So it has a step-by-step process. It has the vocabulary building part of it as well. So if you're interested in that, join us with the first link in the description, 7-day free trial for you to try it out and see if you like it or not. So knowing what to do is also very important. But I have a trick for you guys. How do you know what to learn, what not to learn? Just simply ask yourself a question. What do I want to accomplish? I want to speak Russian. Let's start there. I want to speak about my job. That's our goal, right? Just try it right now. Talk about your job. What can you say about your job? Я работаю в кафе. Very short, descriptive, but very short. What you might want to say is, I work as a waiter and I work from 9 to 5. More descriptive, right? So you start with what you have and you slowly work on things that you're missing from your goal. And that can be a topic of work. Then you move on to a topic of education. Then you move on to a topic of weather, etc., 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 etc. Realize where you are and think about where you want to get. And what are the steps? The steps will show themselves. They'll reveal themselves very, very quickly. But you always have to keep in mind of what you want to learn. Don't let me, some other tutor, some other course dictate the lessons. That can be a good guidance to you, but at the end of the day, each person is unique, and no one person will benefit from a standard curriculum the same. Some may benefit more, some may benefit less. So you have to carve your own path to your fluency in Russian. And then that's the first thing, realizing what to do and how to get there. Second thing is, I think people are underutilizing vocabulary building apps. Be Fluent has one as well, just so you know. But vocabulary has to be at least 50% of your time spent on Russian. If you have an hour, 30 minutes must go to vocabulary. For one simple reason, memory has a long-term effect. We cannot just cram 1,000 words in 1 month. It's going to be impossible unless you spend like 10 hours every single day. You cannot just flip through flashcards, 1,000 flashcards for a month, and suddenly you have those words in your vocabulary. It's not going to happen. So you have to allow time. You have to allow your brain to process all that information so you can retain it for a long, long time. And the earlier you start, the better. The more time you spend, the better. That's the second pillar of it, is the vocabulary building part. And then practice. Theory versus practice. You taking in information versus you putting out information. This has to do with pronunciation, speaking, and listening. Part vocabulary too, because when you are putting words on a piece of paper, you also are strengthening your vocabulary too. But it's mainly about speaking, pronunciation, and listening. You have to include those parts of the Russian language into your learning. You might say, well, I don't have a partner to speak with. I don't have a Russian native next to me. I'm doomed. Those skills will not be developed. Really? We live in 1960? We live in a day and age of immediate connection with anybody across the world. You don't have to have even a real person to speak to. These days, you can speak to AI. These days, you can do whatever you want. Practicing pronunciation, in fact, can be just you in front of a mirror, or you with a phone recorder, right? Just recording your voice. It can be anything. And listening, I mean, don't get me started. You have podcasts, music, videos, learner's materials. Endless information, endless stream of information that you can use. So use those things. If we spend about 50% of our time on vocabulary, at least 20% of the time should be spent speaking, listening, or practicing your pronunciation. The rest, 30%, you can do whatever you want. Watch shows, study grammar rules, drill those grammar exercises, whatever you want to do. But if right now your learning only consists of grammar, spoiler, you will not get to fluency. You have to spend time with vocabulary. You have to spend time with speaking and listening. This is what I would do if I were you. My exact step-by-step, going from start to finish. I start with A1 level words, learn them, study them 1 hour a day. Let's say if I have 2 hours every day, I study 1 hour of vocabulary, then I start learning basic grammar, something like basic sentence structure. Then I would spend about maybe 20 minutes writing out different sentences with the words that I learn. I use, let's say if I have 100 words that I'm studying, I use 50 of them to make sentences that will make sense. I'll go on a translator or with AI and check my sentences and ask AI if I have any mistakes, whatever it is. That'll be my first part. Then I would spend time in the beginning listening to songs. They're easier to listen to versus a dialogue. And then the remainder of the time, I would maybe watch a show, 20 minutes of a show, and then I'll repeat the same thing the next day. That'll be my first beginning structure. The more I learn, the better I get at Russian. The structure will not change. I will simply go from A1 level words to A2. The grammar rules will be more difficult. The sentences will not be written, they'll be spoken. And the listening would turn from music to maybe a podcast. And slowly but surely, I increase the difficulty of each. With speaking, I'll also practice my pronunciation and drill that, look up different videos for any trouble that I have with, let's say, rolling my R's, whatever it is, right? So that would be my strategy of learning. That is all. That's how you get to fluency. It sounds simple, but I just described to you the process that would take 3 to 4 to 5 years. And the discipline and the consistency is where it's at. If you don't have those things for 5 years, you will have very little results. But I hope that right now your understanding of Russian fluency is different, is better, is more precise. And I hope that I helped you with this. I hope so. If not, well, sorry. And now let's finish Be Fluent in Russian show with a bit of listening practice. I'll just speaking about something to you, and we're going to have subtitles with this video. If you're listening to this in the audio format, then you might have it somewhere in the description, so you can look at that as well. Here we go. Вот закончился наш первый выпуск Be Fluent in Russian Show. Это новый формат, который, я надеюсь, будет с нами очень долго. Я хочу, чтобы мы познакомились с вами поближе, чтобы мы могли изучать русский вместе. Мне не очень нравится формат, где видео 5 минут, 6 минут, я говорю на какую-то тему, и все. Мы уходим по домам, мы расстаемся. Мне больше нравится формат диалога, где мы можем поговорить, где мы можем быть вместе. Мне это ближе к сердцу. И я надеюсь, что вам тоже это понравится, и что мы сможем быть вместе долгое-долгое время. Вообще, этот формат, идея этого формата у меня появилась, когда я начал замечать, что наши ученики, у них нет чего-то, что они могут делать каждую неделю. У них нет помощника, у них нет советчика, у них нет преподавателя, нет учителя, скажем так. И я бы хотел стать для вас этим помощником. Надеюсь, что у нас это получится. Надеюсь, посмотрим. И здесь, конечно, мне очень важна ваша поддержка. Если у вас есть идеи, если у вас есть замечания, то, пожалуйста, скажите мне о них. Также, что еще? Ну, какая-то простая тема. Сегодня у нас за окном солнце, хорошая погода. Я сегодня хочу пойти на улицу бегать, чтобы заняться спортом. У нас сегодня 15 градусов по Цельсию. Это идеальная погода для пробежки. Потом вечером мы пойдем с моей женой в наше любимое место. Это бургерная. Мы закажем себе по бургеру. Это cheat meal для нас. И в этом месте бургеры готовят очень хорошо. У них очень качественное мясо. И да, мы пойдем туда. И также вечером мы договорились начать смотреть новый сериал. Какой, я не знаю. Возможно, это будет что-то типа комедии, потому что нам нравятся комедии, но я не знаю. Здесь уже решает моя жена, не я. На этом все. Надеюсь, что вам понравилось. That is all. That's the end of the first episode. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Like I said, any harsh criticism, as long as it's constructive, I'll receive and learn from it. Okay? And that is all. Like I said, join Be Fluent if you want a more structured approach to learning with this button right here, or keep on watching our YouTube videos with this next one. It's up to you.